Hi, Chelsea. Welcome to Your Next podcast.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
So happy to have you here. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
So, my name is Chelsea. I am a romance author. I'm also a flight attendant, and I have written 16 books, I think. If my math is correct, it might be 15. I've lost track
Yeah,
in the last 4 years. And I'm an indie author who's now transitioning to be a hybrid author with a publisher as well. And that's me in my little elevator pitch.
that's you. So you're still flying, or are you taking a hiatus?
Yes, I'm on a leave right now. I'm on a leave until September 1. I'll go back flying. TBD on what the future looks like, to be honest. I go back and forth every day. I love flying. It's such a fun job. You get to meet people, you get to see the world. Like I was doing London layovers, so I was in London every week. And I mean, it doesn't get much better than that. But with writing and the goals and everything I have planned, it's hard to balance the two.
Mm.
So we will see. So right now I am a full-time author until September, and then we'll see where the road takes me.
Well, you're not the first flight attendant, which is like an interesting career move. Because I think I've been real three so
Who
far.
else have you talked to?
Lacey
Oh, yes. Walden?
Walden. Yep.
What? Yeah,
Yep.
or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, and there was something else. And then there's also TJ Newman, who also is a flight attendant, who wrote
Oh,
the
nice.
thrillers in her napkins.
Oh, I love that.
So she writes
It's
thrillers set in a flight attendant.
it's a flexible career where like you can, at least when you've had a couple of years of experience, like it's a flexible career where you can kind of balance two different
Yeah.
things, and there is downtime, but it is also a lot of being away from home, a lot of traveling. People think of like the job as like just the flight they're on, but we have to drive to the airport, we have to sign in, we have to do our safety checks, we do that flight, we probably do another flight, then we have to get to our hotel, get back. So it like a 1 day trip is really, we're working for 15 hours. So it's not as flexible as people think it is, but it is much more flexible than a normal desk job.
Yes, it is. Talk to
Mhm.
us about your writing. How did you get started?
Well, I started during COVID 2021. I was a flight attendant at the time. COVID happened and my company's like, we need people to take leaves. We don't know what's going on with air travel. I was like, I'll sit at home. Fine. So I took a leave and I started to read a lot. There's something it you the one thing about me is I can't sit still. My brain does not turn off. And so I went from having this job where I was working 18 days a month to being at home, not knowing what's happening in the world, not flying home to see my family because my parents are, and they were in their 60s. My grandmother lived at home. So it was a lot of not doing anything, which was very hard for me. So I started to read a lot. I was kind of turning into insomniac. I was not sleeping. I was reading like 30 books a month and playing Animal Crossing. And I started reading like thrillers and like literary fiction. But then my first romance book was People Leaving on Vacation by Emily Henry in
Oh my
2020,
gosh.
I think, because it was the book of the month. And I was like, oh my God, I love this. And I was like, oh, I'm going to try to write a book. And reading and writing are two very different things. They're not close at all. So I started writing. 2021, 2022, I published my first three books. And then I kept writing and I kept publishing. And it's really interesting where people like the Chelsea of today is so different from the Chelsea of 2022. But there are people, readers who have been with me from the very beginning. And I've grown as an author, which I think is really important because like you only want to keep getting better at your craft. And so I feel like I've grown a lot as an author, as a storyteller, but there's people who have read every single book from when they published. And it's just been a wild journey, but that I'm so deeply grateful for.
Yeah. So talk to us about transition, because you've been an indie author. You
Hmm.
used to start and now transition to a hybrid model. As an indie
Hmm.
author, for the readers who have not are not familiar, you're actually running the whole business. You're
Hmm.
building the readership, you're figuring out the
Hmm.
cover, you're hiring the editors, you're hiring the whole book, not just writing. You're actually thinking about the
Right.
business part and selling the book, and whether it's
Hmm.
influencer marketing or ads, it's specific. It's a whole job that you're building,
Yes.
and you were still working while
Hmm.
building this business. So it takes a lot of time to do and to learn, because that's the other part. You had to learn how to do
Hmm.
the things and how does it work for you, because
Hmm.
it might not work for somebody else, but it might not. And especially how
It,
the market changes so quickly.
Yes. So I have published 14, 15 indie books. I had a book that did fairly well back in December of 2023, caught on camera, which was it was like kind of Christmassy, seasonal, and I released it in December. It did fairly well. I had a couple videos go viral on TikTok and Instagram. And after that, I think it was after that that I connected with my agent, Caitlin, who approached me and was like, "Hey, do you have any representation?" I said, "Nope, I don't even know what that is." And so we started working together. And then I published The DC Stars. Face Off was the first book in that series. And she was like, "Well, where are you thinking about for your career?" And I was like, "Well, I love being an indie author because it is a lot of work, but you have complete control over everything. You have complete control over publication date, covers, editor and editing style, what you want to tell. If you want to write a book today and publish it tomorrow, you can. It moves very quickly." And she was like, "Well, what do you see? Like, what do you see your career in a couple of years?" And I was like, "Well, I would love to see my book in bookstores." And this is before today, where I could go into a lot of indie bookstores and find my books. And I'm so grateful for that. But this was pre that. And I said, "I want to walk into a bookstore and see my books." And I'm like, "I think that would be a traditional publishing room." And she's, "Okay, well, what do you have for me?" I said, "Well, I have this hockey series. It's doing kind of well. In 2 years, it'll be this, and then we'll come back to that." And she's like, "Well, what about something contemporary rom-com?" And I was like, "Well, I have a book on meteorologist that I wrote back in 2022." And she was like, "Tell me more." And that was the book that we went on submission with. And that was a book that veered me into there it is up there, into the traditional publishing territory. And so now I'm balancing these two worlds of indie and of traditional publishing because they both have pros, they both have cons, and it's very much an individual preference of what you're looking for. Indie, you're doing everything by yourself, like you said. Trad, you have a whole team behind you for marketing, tour stops, covers, editing, printing. I just write the book and I hand it off for traditional publishing. But as someone who has loved their time in the indie space, and again, my brain doesn't stop. I have a lot of stories to tell. The indie market fits that 3 or 4 books a year publishing schedule, where trad publishing tends to be one, maybe two. If you're the queen of romance, Allie Hazelwood, a couple more than that. But, so I kind of found myself in this hybrid situation where I'm still writing and releasing indie books while also writing books traditionally published. And I'm really happy about the merging of the two relationships, I guess,
Yeah.
spheres. And we're here today.
Yeah, I grew to see your career when it started, and you were one of those hidden gems. And I was like, "Oh, I would like to talk to you." It's
Mhm.
hard with indies because you're managing everything, and it's hard to actually educate what is a podcast and what do we do,
Mhm.
and you're competing with multiple responsibilities. So when the opportunity came up that you were traditionally published, I was very excited to have the opportunity to talk to you because I think it's exciting to have to one is you have to diversify your income,
Yeah.
and so having a hybrid model allows you to have different income streams, like different royalty. You may earn a little bit less on the traditional publish, but there's stability of a
Right.
check maybe coming in while
Mhm.
you're not constantly marketing the books. Although your backlist does sell you, and that's the beauty
Mhm.
of like when you go viral, you want to have a nice healthy backlist. So people
Right.
go back to it. It's interesting to see the process and like seeing the growth and seeing like where you are right. It's wonderful, and to see it from the outside looking in. Let's talk about the DC hockey series because that's basically the one that people are
There we
talking
go.
about it. So
Mhm.
I follow a couple Bravo accounts. I love Bravo pop culture, and they talk about reading you, and they were mentioning your
Mhm.
books, and I was like, talking to
Oh,
her.
that's exciting.
I think it's exciting. So it's funny to see these books actually spreading to other communities outside of the book
Yeah.
community, which is always like dream. It's like the
Yeah.
readers. So talk to us about the DC series. Like is it a full series already, or are we still getting more books in that series?
5 books. 2 more books are coming out. I'll just give a quick little. I'll circle back to this in a
Yeah.
second. So, Faith Off May 2024. I knew it's really funny because I love sports. I'm a sports girl. I love sports. Basketball is my jam, and it's really interesting that I haven't published a NBA romance yet, but it is coming. But I was like, the sports romance market is so big right now. And I wrote like another kind of sports series, the Love Through a Lens series, where in book 3, the main character has a best friend, Maverick Miller, who's a hockey player. As soon as I wrote him on the page, I was like, great, he's going to need a book. Do I integrate it into this series? Do I do a new series? I guess I'll do a new series. And when I was sitting down to write Face Off, I was like, there's so many wonderful hockey romances out there. I said to myself, what can I do to make mine different in a market where there's so much to choose from? And I knew he was a hockey player. And I was like, okay, well, I know what he's like because he's arrogant, but not like a jerk. Like he's cocky. I'm hot. I'm good at hockey. And I'm like, okay, well, I need him to be paired with someone who's going to bring him down a couple pegs, who doesn't fall for that, and who doesn't like the charm doesn't work. And I'm like, okay, so that means she's going to have to be with the team somehow. I'm like, social media, athletic trainer. I'm like, no, I'm not really vibing with any of that. And I said, you know what? I'm going to put her in the NHL. Why not? And then that was the face off story. And it sort of kind of snowballed into a series with hockey players, obviously, but also strong women in sports in a field where it's dominated by men and men don't want them, but they are exceeding every expectation and the men are supporting them. And I think I originally plotted it as a 4-book series, but now it's going to be 7. But it was indie published and it has I'm announcing it tomorrow, which this now we're in the past when you're watching and listening to this,
Yeah.
but I am announcing tomorrow that the Atria picked up books 1 through 5 for the DC Stars. So they'll be trad published. And the really exciting thing is I'm writing an 8th book for the series that will come out next year. So we're not stepping in 7. We're going with 8, lucky number, even number, lucky number. And that will be out in 2027. So it's really a full circle moment because when I wrote Face Off and I was I know I'm doing something different. And I was worried because romance, any book is a work of fiction. And there's always a line of believability in a book. And you're like, okay, yeah, I can believe that. Yeah, I can believe that. But there's always a line where you're like, nah, I don't believe that. And I was like, putting a woman in the NHL, like that might be the line. And I was like, I don't care. I'm going to do it anyway. And it's funny because Face Off of the whole series, lowest pre-order numbers, never gone above 300 in the Kindle store when it released. It had readers. It was doing well. I think people don't talk about this enough, but one of the biggest success drivers of publishing is luck and timing and your book getting into the right hands of the right people at the right time. And a couple big book talkers picked up Face Off and shared it. And then that kind of started to spiral everything when book 2 came out in October 2024. And since then, it's grown beyond my wildest dreams. And I never thought this would happen because my debut, An Unexpected Paradise, I think has 2,000 reviews on Goodreads. And Face Off is 110,000 now, audiobooks,
Oh my gosh.
translation, traditional published. And it's one of those things where it's the 8th book I've written, but people seem to think it's the first. And I'm like, no, I published 7 before that didn't get the traction this did. And I don't know what made this special. I think maybe because I put Emmy in the NHL, it was different. But when I was writing it, it was the first time in my career where I finished it and I was like, this is special. I'm like, this is special to me. And I think this is going to be special to readers. And it has been. And it's changed my life in the wildest ways. So I owe a lot to Maverick and Emmy up there. And I don't know. I'm just glad that I took the risk and did it. And it's not I had next year, I will have another series with another woman in the NHL. And I don't know, it's kind of made me like, I'm going to write what I want to write. And that's it.
I love it. And you know what? Women hockey, like we got a women's professional hockey league now.
Uh-huh.
Like it's not unbelievable. Like women in sports is now the new
Right.
thing. Even if you decide to do the NBA, you can just do WNBA
Yep.
romance. And you know what?
Oh,
That's even hotter.
I got a whole stack of notebooks over here. There's WNBA, there's PWHL. And when I wrote Face Off, the PWHL wasn't in its existence that it is today.
Yeah.
And so I was like, well, that's what I'm going to put her in the NHL. And I made sure to write my author's note. When I wrote this, the
Yeah.
PWHL wasn't what it is. Well, certainly not what it is now. but I think I still would have put her in the NHL because
Yeah.
why not? Like I know she played college. I don't know if she made it to the NHL, but there was a college where they had a female kicker, a girl kicking for their football team. And I'm like, I love it. Why not? We can do anything the boys can do. And so that, I don't know, that kind of sparks a series of obsessed men and badass women. And here we are.
Here we are. And yes, I am so excited. Congratulations on yet
Thank
another
you.
series that's just going to be in bookstores everywhere.
Thank you.
Awesome. Let's start with In Stormy Weather. In Stormy Weather,
Uh-huh.
which is two meteorologists chasing
Uh-huh.
hurricanes in Florida. I live in
Uh-huh.
Tampa now. I lived in New York for a long time. I'm actually
Yep.
from Puerto Rico, so I grew up with
Okay.
hurricanes since I was a
Yep.
baby. Like I'm been
Yep.
in hurricanes, and I'm 5 years ago I moved to Tampa, and I've experienced hurricanes back again. Although
Yep.
actually I did experience a hurricane in New York. We did have Superstorm Sandy, actually.
Sandy. Yep.
That was like a big one. So this book was like a reminder of these weather events that happen,
Yeah.
that we expect them, that we're
Uh-huh.
used to it. And we have two rivals. We got a New Yorker. They actually know each other, but he's coming from
Yeah.
New York. He's a big
Uh-huh.
shot meteorologist who is
Yep.
doing like a job here. And then we have like like a weather influencer, which is so topical to where we.
So this book first came to me in September 2022. Or it might have been October. I forget when Hurricane Ian happened. So let me back
Yes.
up. So I'm born and raised in Florida. I have been through dozens of
Yeah.
hurricanes. And in 2004, four hurricanes came through Florida in 6 weeks, which is absolutely unheard of. And Hurricane Charlie was the first one. Charlie was the first one and made landfall. It was projected for Tampa. It turned early, came through South Florida, I'm bad with directions, Southwest Florida, and came up the I-4 corridor
Yep.
through my town of Winter Park. And so I was 14 at the time. It was like the first massive, and this thing was just total destruction. My parents live in Winter Park, which lots of old oak trees. We couldn't get out of our neighborhood for 2 days because all the oak trees were down. Just total destruction, billions of dollars of damage. People died, properties gone. And that was the first storm that I remember being like, oh my God, like this, like that. I'm full understanding of like how it's hard to say beautiful while a storm is destructive. And they talk about this in Stormy Weather, but being like, something is capable of doing this and we can't stop it. And so after that, I became obsessed with hurricanes, totally normal. And I did not go to school for science. I did not go to school for meteorology. My brain doesn't work like that. I just like tracking hurricanes. And so every June 1st, that's when the hurricane season starts. I'm looking online, any wave that comes on America, I'm looking it up. I'm like, okay, what got here? And so I was home in Florida in September or October 2022 during Hurricane Ian. And we had taken my grandmother to a shelter with my mom because she needed oxygen and we were going to lose power during the storm. And you need power for oxygen. So we took them to a shelter and I was in my parents' spare bedroom watching the news, watching the storm come in. And I was like, hang on, I can make a romance novel out of anything. You put me somewhere for 5 minutes, I got a whole plot for you. And so I'm watching the news and I'm like, okay, what about two meteorologists? And I was like, done. And I have a note in my phone from like October 2022 that says meteorologist question mark, love story question mark, something like that. And I started to write it. I think I wrote like 40,000, 50,000 words. At its earliest being, it was single point of view, dual timeline, second chance, which is nothing like I've ever written before. And the original story, they both lived in Oak Valley, which is where it takes place. He gets a job in New York. So he goes, she stays. Hurricanes are my life. I'm not going to leave. And so they break up. He comes back for the summer. They fall back in love. And so I showed it to two people, edited it, and then it got put back on the back burner because all this other stuff happened. And so when my agent was like, what do you have? I said, well, I have this. And I'm in my head, I'm like, this is weird. This is the weird concept of two meteorologists falling in love. And she's like, all right, let's do it. And so it's gone through a lot of changes. It's gone through a lot of different entities, but at its core, it's always been two scientists who love weather. And I am so in love and immensely proud of this story. And how I said Face Off, I felt like it was special. I felt like that 3 times in my career. Face Off was one of them. Hat Trick, which is the 4th book in the DC Stars, was the 2nd time, and In Stormy Weather was the 3rd time. And it's my love letter to Florida. It's my love letter to hurricanes, to weather, to women in a field that's dominated by men who are telling her she can't do something. And it was so much fun to write. And I've read it back like 35 times because of editing and past pages and checking all this stuff. And when I finished it for the last time, I still loved it. And I think that's important because I don't feel that way with everything. I love everything I write, but like this, I was like still giggling, smiling, like being like, oh my God. And I'm like, I wrote this. Like, I'm well aware they're going to get out of this tornado, but it was such a joy to write. And I did a lot of research because I'm not a scientist. So I did a lot of research to make sure I got things right. It was an absolute joy to write. And I'm so proud of it. And it's different from my other books because it's not a hockey series, it's not a sports series, but at its core, it's exactly the same. Man obsessed, banter, spice, strong, capable woman, and found family. So all those themes are very woven into this story, like all my other stories. So it comes out July 14th or now, or at some point very soon to when this is out. It is out or already out and are coming out soon. And I love it very much. And I hope everyone
Oh
else
my
loves
gosh.
it
I have
too.
to tell you, you're in building a market. One of the niche this year that we're getting for the summer is weather related books. There's a couple
Mhm.
more weather related books. And I was like, but I'm thinking because I grew up in Puerto Rico, similar. I grew up with knowing hurricanes, knowing all the names, waiting for little warm weather, checking the temperature of the Gulf and
Yep,
checking the temperature of the Atlantic and seeing like these like major little things are happening in Africa that may become something and something is going to happen and what the storm and then the
exactly.
trajectory where the storm is and how the winds and the cold fronts help it. I think it's
Yes.
like something about
Yes.
growing up and that expectation.
Well, and like when I was writing it, I wanted to be very careful because a lot of people have never been in a hurricane. They don't know what it's like. They won't ever experience it. So I wanted to be careful where it wasn't too sciencey or like too weathery because I'm like, I could have gone full weather
Yeah.
nerd. Like we could have gone 19 more scenes with weather, but I really wanted to toe the line and be very careful about not making it too weather or science heavy.
Yeah.
And I think we found a good balance there. And people message me, they're like, I learned so much from this book. I'm like, I learned so much by writing it. Like, I didn't know half this stuff when I like was writing it. And it was a really fun, like, learning experience, but I still am not smart enough to be a scientist or a meteorologist. I'll leave that to my fictional characters.
I know. Well, I have to tell you, I avoided when Ian was happening because it was her first year back in Florida and didn't have
Mhm.
a car. So I ended up going to Orlando and avoiding it because it was supposed to make
Yep.
landfall in Tampa. And then it
Yep.
unfortunately made landfall in the I-4 corridor of
Again.
Orlando. So
Yep.
I was like, Tampa did not lose power, and the other one did. I actually, about 2 years ago, we had one that made landfall, like Sarasota, that area,
Mhm.
but there was storm surge and we lost power. And now when I ended up, I didn't have a car at the time. Don't ask. I lived in Florida for 4 years without a car. Do not recommend. This is
That's
not the way to
impressive.
go.
That's impressive.
So I ended up like traveling. My mom was like, just get a ticket to Puerto Rico. We'll find a way to just pass the storm and then come back.
Mhm.
And so I went to Puerto Rico for a couple of weeks because my grandma passed away around the same time. So I was like,
Oh,
figure it. But I was like, it was my first storm by myself in a place where I was like,
yeah.
I had no hurricane preparedness.
Yeah.
The very minute. Yeah.
Do your parents still live in Puerto Rico?
Yeah. So the experience Maria. So
I was gonna
yeah.
ask about Maria because I was with JetBlue as my first airline, and I worked the first flight back to San Juan after when they reopened the airport after Hurricane Maria, and it was probably one of the most emotional things most emotional flight I've
Yeah.
ever worked. And however, the love and the appreciation that those people had for us, for getting them home, it
Mm.
was, these people lost everything. And if you're watching this, listening to this, like Hurricane Maria, it devastated Puerto Rico. And for months and
It's still
years down the
devastating.
line.
There's
It's
still
still
still 8
devastating.
years, we still have the
Exactly.
issues.
And these people who were facing like this, going home to nothing, they just had so much kindness in their heart. And I just remember that, like, that in the, and I feel like I obviously wasn't writing back then, but this is true with In Stormy Weather. Like, even in the midst of destruction and loss and all this stuff, like, there's so many small moments of humanity, of love, and that are so inspiring. And I will always remember working that flight back to San Juan, and then we turned right back around and went back to Fort Lauderdale, and we took people with us, and it was just, I don't know, it was really hard. And I'm with your family being there, but it was just like the appreciation that the folks at San Juan showed us. I will always remember their kindness for us. And I'm like, we're not doing anything. And yeah, I remember that very vividly to this day.
Yeah, it's interesting. I devastated, like, the island. My parents didn't have power
Mhm.
for months. And my
Months.
mom
Yeah.
still has a lot of PTSD around it.
Oh.
But the one thing I have to say about spending hurricanes, because I grew up with hurricanes, it was the sense of community, the sense of, and I think Florida has the same idea. We're gonna community, we're gonna party, we're gonna make the best out of a shitty situation, and
Exactly.
we're just gonna do what we need to do. We're gonna help each other out. It's the
Yep.
same thing, like, say you're gonna buy your hurricane preparedness, but you also have the alcohol, or you also
Yes.
have the game.
The snacks, you're
Just
ready to go.
now.
Well, it's so in stormy weather, and like, you can appreciate this being in the South. Like, as someone who grew up in Florida, there's two barometers, barometer, no, not barometers, like a weather device. Like two, I don't know what I'm trying to say, but the two things, if Waffle House closes and if Disney World closes, that's when you know
Yes.
things are getting bad. And it's in stormy weather. I wrote a Waffle House scene because that is literally something that the people in the South, they're like, oh, Waffle House is open. Okay, things aren't that bad. Or you're like, oh my God, Disney's closing. This is the end times.
Yeah, it just really puts it in perspective. But yeah, I
Mhm.
appreciate this book. I appreciate that you were inspired by the senior thing that I was avoiding. And you
Yep.
know what? It's a book. I think in some ways it educates others about what hurricane life looks like and what their
Mhm.
situations. Because I feel like when I explained it to people in the north, when Superstorm Sandy happened and that was
Mhm.
devastating, I like that took away the power and specific. I was the one educating my friends. I was like, "Oh, you need to get water. You need to get the
Yep.
specifics. Like, you can
Yeah.
lose power." Like the same
For
idea that we
days.
had the same idea that we had with the pandemic. We were buying toilet paper, but we're not losing power then. The
Exactly.
same vibes that we
Exactly.
had before COVID shut down. It was like that's the energy that we needed
Yes.
for the hurricanes.
I also wanted to have the conversation in the book, and Quincy and Sebastian, the two main characters, are I think it's an internal thought that she's having is, it's so easy to like not be in the area and make judgment and assumptions about, oh, why those people aren't leaving, they're stupid. It's their own fault. And it's like, some people can't, a lot of
Yeah,
people can't. For a lot of people, that's their home, that's all they have.
yeah,
And they have family members, they have pets that they're not going to leave behind. And I there's romance, there's spice, there's banter, it's laugh out loud, but there's also some of those conversations like, you don't know what someone's going through and for why they're not going to leave and why they don't want to leave. And it's
yeah,
so easy to assume that as someone who's in Idaho and doesn't know what's happening with a hurricane. But, till you like really live it and experience or read about it, you're like, I feel like it kind of opens up your worldview a little bit more.
yeah. Thank you for engaging me with entertaining me with the hurricane weather
Oh,
conversation.
I'm
Because
going
it
to write
sounds.
more meteorology books.
Please do. Please talk about weather.
Book two is
Yeah.
Book two is not meteorologist. So, like, someone was like, "Oh, I think I was just speaking of. I think I just saw lightning outside my window." Like, this is not. We're not like doing a full meteorology series. The first book was the only one, and actually, it's going to be each book is going to be based on the elements, so earth, wind, fire, water.
Yeah.
So, in Stormy Weather was wind. Book two will be fire, and then water, and then earth. So, we're doing a little
Ooh.
bit of it's elements. It's not meteorology. It's elements.
Okay, I like it. I'm excited
Yeah.
for book two. So let's talk some book recommendations. What kind of books do you want
Mhm.
to recommend our listeners to pick up?
So I have to shout out my girl, Peyton Corinne. I love her. I love her dearly. So she writes college talkie romances, but they're so emotionally deep. There's so much emphasis on mental health, and they're college students, but they don't feel like they're college students because they have all this real world experience of grief and loss. And I remember I read her first book, Unsteady, back when it was an indie release. And I was blown away by her care and consideration that she puts into her characters. And I feel very fortunate that in the last three, last couple of years, we've become really good friends. And if we're at an event together, we're probably going to be side by side. And I just have deep love for her and immense respect for her writing and her as a person. She's so kind and wonderful. And whenever someone is, oh, this book, I'm like, I love Peyton. So she's my go-to. I love Peyton. Other recommendations. I don't read as much now as I did before. I was writing because I'm writing all day. And then I feel like I sit in my bed and I scroll and I'm like, okay, I could have finished 3 chapters now. But I'd also recently read Long Shot by Kennedy Ryan, which literally ripped my heart out. I was like, oh, a basketball book. I love basketball. And I didn't read trigger warnings. I didn't read like the blurb.
Oh
I'm like,
no.
I just need to read this basketball book. And I was like, oh my God. But it was, I literally could not put it down. I had the physical copy and then I had to get it on Kindle because my other half was asleep in bed and I'm like, I have to know what happens. So I'm reading it on my Kindle at like midnight, 1 a.m. And I'm like flying through it, like holding back tears. Oh, and I feel like Peyton and Kennedy are very similar writing styles. Peyton obviously writes college and Kennedy writes adults, but there's just so much angst and there's so much more than just romance to the story. There's so many other things happening and they do it so well. And they handle these topics with such care.
Tell us.
You can find me on Instagram at author Chelsea Curto. You can find me on Threads. And in the last couple months, all the events I go to, people tell me they love me on Threads. And it's just because I just don't care. And I just say what I want. And I'm going to call you out. I'm just going to be like, no, that's wrong. And I'm like, oh, thank you so much. I'm a total menace on there, but I am on Threads I think it's at author Chelsea Curto. And then I have a TikTok, which I do not run. I have two wonderful girls who run TikToks for me. But my main one is at Chelsea Reads and Writes. I'm pretty sure for TikTok. Yeah, that's all. I think that's all the social media. I don't go on Twitter. That is nope
We don't
or
access
whatever
that
it's
dead
called now.
name. We don't care,
Need a
listeners.
yeah, yeah, Instagram and Threads. That's all. That's all I need. That's my happy place.
Yeah. Thank you, Chelsea, for being on the show.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for listening to the What to Read Next. For more book lists, cozy reads, and library tips, visit the whattoreadnextblog.com. Your next great read might be waiting there.